Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason in Tupelo, Mississippi, and yes, this is another Elvis edition. And in this episode, I'm going to be mostly focused on Elvis-related landmarks that were related to his childhood. Now, I've done one episode on his his boyhood home where he was born, his church, the museum complex. None of that is going to be featured in this video. So basically, the whole purpose of this video is to show you a bunch of other sites that hopefully Elvis fans, maybe you're perhaps one of them, can visit whenever you're down in Tupelo. So I'm going to go ahead and start off at the northernmost one, which is off of Green Street in Tupelo, and it's right in front of a church. I'll just go ahead and show you and start the tour. So, all right. So that right there is the Spring Valley Baptist Church, and I'm going to go ahead and show you a marker about a place that no longer exists, but Elvis, it had a lot to do with his life. Mayhorn Grocery. In 1947, Elvis lived at the north end of Green Street, not far from here. Mayhorn Grocery previously occupied this space, and Elvis would walk to the store and sit on the porch listening to the blues. It was also here that he heard the sounds of black gospel music sung in the church across the street. The church, of course, is that one right there. And there is a historical marker about it, and it talks about how it was established approximately during the 1850s. It is the oldest African-American church in Tupelo. The original sanctuary that goes all the way back to 1921 still exists, and is one of the oldest surviving church buildings in Tupelo. It even survived the devastating tornado of 1936. But pretty much, it's been an advocate for the rights of both its congregation and the African-American community, and a place of worship. And again, the sounds of gospel coming out of those buildings were what inspired the future king of rock and roll. All right, so we're gonna go down a little south of town where a lot of the sites are closer to each other, so follow me. All right, so right in front of me is the junior high school where Elvis attended. Now, he did not attend, he attended his 7th grade year here, but he had not finished his 8th grade year here as his family moved to Memphis, and that was when his parents felt there wasn't hardly any opportunities here in Tupelo, so they moved to the big city. But here is a plaque over here, talks more about Elvis, and I'm pretty sure it's pronounced either Milam or Milam High School, M-I-L-A-M. Elvis attended the 7th and part of the 8th grade here. He often played his guitar for classmates during the lunch hour. In 1948, the family moved to Memphis before he completed the school year. And this was put here in 2002 by the same groups as you'll see on some of the more markers I show you. All right, going down Jefferson Street. At the corner of Jefferson and Madison Streets is Lee County Library. At the site on February 13th, 1948, 13-year-old Elvis, accompanied by his mother Gladys, applied for his first library card. Through the books he read from the Lee County Library, Elvis would vicariously travel to distant places and learn new things that were still only the dreams of a young boy growing up in Tupelo. Put here in 2003. I'm going to give you a little look at the front of the library real quick. All right, it looks to be a big library. All right, so now we're going to go into Main Street, or the downtown district, so follow me. In front of me is Lee County Courthouse. Yes, Tupelo is the county seat of Lee County, Mississippi, but there was also a radio station located here. I don't know if it was inside the courthouse or what, but let's see what this marker says. In 1946, Tupelo radio station WELO broadcast weekly music jamborees from the courthouse. Mississippi Slim, who had his own show on WELO, arranged for Elvis to perform at the jamboree. Elvis's dream was to become as famous as Mississippi Slim and to have his own radio show someday. Now, just to give you a little history lesson on the music industry, now back in the 1930s and 1940s, radio was pretty much the only medium that made the world feel smaller. Like today we have the internet, radio, TV, although radio is becoming less irrelevant, I'm sorry to say, but I mean, I still listen to the radio. But anywho, now country music stars and R&B and blues musicians, before rock and roll was even a thing, I mean, to say that they made it was to have their own radio show, like even for an hour. Then that meant that people can sit in front of their radios in their living room, kids, parents, or adults, or whoever. They can just sit and listen to the radio, and I guess just have some sort of imagination to go with it when singing. And Elvis wanted to be that guy. I mean, a lot of legendary country stars like Eddie Arnold and Pee Wee King, and of course the Grand Ole Opry, which is the longest running radio show in the United States and perhaps the world. I mean, they were able to, you know, capitalize on this whole thing and before becoming like big time performers. Then TV came along, and now Elvis, I know I'm always kind of sick of hearing the right place, right time stories, because a lot of times people don't believe in those things. But Elvis came at a time when TV was becoming the medium during the 1950s. And when people saw Hank Williams, they thought he had a face for radio. I'm just kidding. But when they saw a young, good-looking Elvis Presley on TV on the Ed Sullivan Show, yeah, they knew they found themselves a hero. All right, I'm going to move on to the next stop in downtown Tupelo. Follow me. So right across from the courthouse on Broadway Street is the Lyric Theater. But there are two historical markers that talked about how it also played an important role in Elvis's life. This is apparently where he got his first kiss. Well, I'll let the plaques tell them all about it. Okay, so there are two plaques, obviously, one longer than the other, but I'm going to start with the one on the bottom first. Elvis enjoyed going to the movies, especially westerns, at the Lyric Theater. Friends recall how Elvis would climb over the divider in the balcony to sit among his African-American friends. The sweetest of the legends associated with this theater and Elvis is the rumor that he stole his first kiss in the balcony. Alright, so here is a little bit more about the theater, not necessarily just about Elvis, but the theater was built in 1912 by Mr. R.F. Goodlet. Originally named the Comus, it hosted live vaudeville shows. 1930s, it became part of the Malco chain of movie houses, and then the name was changed to Lyric Theater. A popular local legend tells that Elvis stole his first kiss in the balcony. Okay, just like what I said. And then it pretty much talks about how in 1984 that Lyric had outlived its usefulness as a movie theater, and TCT pretty much purchased the historic theater and restored it to be its permanent home. TCT is in Tupelo Community Theater. So just like a lot of other hometown theaters, this one was neatly restored to what it looked like back in the day. And I'm just going to give a little frontal shot because the sun's kind of in the way. Now the ticket office is open. I don't think they'll let me go in, but what do I know? Yeah, not open. Thought I'd give it a shot anyway. And usually I'm a fan of these art hunts, like how they have like all these art installations around the town. And I haven't really paid much attention to it, admittingly, but I thought it was cool just to kind of check these out. Some people utilize this as a photo op, some don't. Either way, it's cool. So here's a couple more right in front of the Lee County Board of Supervisors. Like here's one kind of like an Andy Warhol looking one, and I'll show you another one. All right, here's another guitar for you. Thank you very much. It was a lot funnier when Uncle Jesse did it, but yeah, thank you very much. And it's right in front of a, looks like an Australian themed Down Under bar. Oh, very neat. I'll check it out sometime. But here is another Elvis site. This was the guy that delivered Elvis, as well as his twin brother, who unfortunately died at birth. But this was the office. It was housed on the second floor of this building at 214 West Main Street. Just before dawn, January 8th, 1935, Dr. Hunt was called to the Presley home and delivered Jesse Aaron Presley, who was stillborn, and 35 minutes later delivered Elvis Aaron Presley. Officially noted on medical record 920, Elvis was born about halfway through Dr. Hunt's career delivery of just over 1,800 babies. Dr. Hunt died in 1952, never knowing of Elvis's international success. Well, I mean, of course, I'm not a doctor, But I wonder how many people that, I mean, I wonder how many babies, like if doctors actually remember the names of who they delivered. I mean, I'm sure the names get lost over time. But I'm gonna go ahead and get a little wide shot of this. All right, so I'm kind of dangerously in the middle of the street, but I'm just gonna go ahead and, that's where it was, right there, somewhere. Of course, this place is now called the main attraction. It's an emporium and a coffee bar. They sell all kinds of Elvis stuff, as you would imagine. But I don't know why, I mentioned this in many other videos, I get fascinated by all these retro signage, like Riley's Jewelers. You know what I'm saying? And as far as the door, I'm pretty sure it was through this door that maybe they had to walk upstairs. What do I know? Oh, look, an old neon sign too. All right, so here is an interesting one. This one isn't even all about Elvis. It's about the Beatles, who Elvis influenced. In fact, when the Beatles first came to America, that's the first person they wanted to meet. Well, they did eventually meet up with him and jam with him reportedly. But then I remember reading press articles that in the late 1960s that Elvis grew tired of seeing their hippie image, but that's another story for another time. But this is their Yellow Submarine themed one. I mean, because it makes sense. I hate to say it. The Beatles and Elvis, they're the top two music legends of all time. I mean, maybe eventually there'll be more names thrown into the mix. I know Taylor Swift's trying to vie for that title, but who knows? Alright, so just off of East Main in downtown Tupelo is the Fairpark, which used to be the fairgrounds. And this is where people really started to see Elvis's talent. And yes, this was where he won his talent show singing Old Shep. And he made another appearance here, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. As you can see, they made it into a huge park. There's a statue of him over there, which we'll visit. And this is a splash pad. In front of me, that's Tupelo City Hall. But I'm going to read this historical marker here. Elvis returned here in 1956 and 1957 to perform concerts on what was then known as the Tupelo Fairgrounds. Proceeds from these concerts were used to buy and restore his birthplace and build the Elvis Presley Youth Center. The Presley family also lived in this area in the late 1930s. Wow, see, I did not know that. I mean, I know they lived in several places in Tupelo during Elvis's childhood, but... And unfortunately, I'm not dressed for the splash pad. Well, it's too hot of a day anyway. That's why I've been like sweating and dry mouth. I've been keeping myself hydrated, but today is a heat advisory. It's like 95 degrees here in Tupelo, and I'm definitely not used to this humidity. Nothing like the Midwest. And there is a playground over there for the kiddos, and there's public restrooms. But here is a marker before we check out get up close to that statue there. Alright, so on October 3rd, 1945, a 10-year-old Elvis played to his first crowd on these grounds and took 5th place in a talent show. 11 years later, he returned as the king of rock and roll. So, alright, so over here is a lot of biographical information about Elvis. Some of you probably already know. A lot of it I do know, but yeah, it basically talks about his life in Tupelo and how his family struggled through hard times and how they moved to Memphis in 1948. And then when he became a star, he returned here, like I said, from the previous marker. But it says here, J.P. Coleman, who was governor of Mississippi at the time in 1956, he said, "Everybody is tickled to death to have you home." And then an early picture of Elvis. He is the third from the left, so that is him. See, I forgot that he wore glasses at the time. But that was at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show held here in 1945. And then here's a picture of him when he made his return here at this spot. Well, not at this exact spot, but here on these grounds in 1956. And yes, that statue is modeled after that photo that was taken by Roger Marshutz. And a set list of what he played, songs that he made famous at the time when he was newly signed to RCA. Oh, I didn't know he did 2 shows, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. So that's something I did not know. And Hound Dog was becoming popular, so was Don't Be Cruel. And then the statue was dedicated in August of 2012, so that was 12 years ago. And here's the guy that sculpted it, Bill Beckwith. So I'm gonna go ahead and check out and get up close to the statue. A lot of people made their marks here on these bricks. All right, check it out. Elvis. Gonna give you a high five there. All right, but well, of course, that was intended for any girl who wanted to touch Elvis, because yes, at the time he was a teen idol and girls thought he was so dangerously good looking. He had the voice, the talent, and he was a fresh new face for America 10 years after World War II ended, and America, I guess, was looking for a hero. And evidently so is the whole world. And this is the person they got, Elvis Aaron Presley. All right, so I'm gonna go downtown Tupelo right over there. The Tupelo Hardware Store is where he bought his first guitar. I'll meet you there. Next up is Tupelo Hardware Company, George H. Booth. And this is your typical mom and pop hardware store, what little is left of them. I know a lot of us are spoiled with Lowe's, Home Depot, and many others, but coming in here will be a trip back in time. But before I do that, I'm going to show you this marker here. So in 1946, Elvis's mother, Gladys, brought him here to buy a bicycle. Once they arrived, a .22 caliber rifle caught Elvis's eye, and he asked his mother to buy it instead. She wasn't happy about purchasing a gun, so they compromised on a guitar. Forrest L. Bobo, a longtime employee of Tupelo Hardware, sold a guitar to the young Elvis for $7.90. And yes, that guitar became very symbolized with Elvis. I can't really think of the right word, but yes, they went hand in hand together. Now, John Lennon's mother once said, "That guitar is fine, honey, but you will never make a living out of it." I'm kind of wondering if Glass said the same thing. But of course, John Lennon was able to prove his mother wrong, and maybe other musicians' mothers said the same thing too. So we're gonna go in and check out the retroness of this place. Here we go. All right, so inside the store, very old-fashioned, even the smell. But right here is where Elvis stood. And as I said in another video, he really wanted a bicycle, which was hanging in that window over there. But he didn't have enough money for it, but he had enough money for a rifle. And that was his first choice. And his mother said, "No way. I don't even know how to load that thing. I don't even know how to shoot that thing. So please." I don't know about those words, but... And evidently his teacher gave them some money to kind of, you know, make a few ends meet. At least that's what I've been told by the hardware store worker. Be sure to talk to the people that work here, because they know a lot of stuff about Tupelo and they'll guide you in the right place. But the guitar case was right here, and again, that's where Elvis stood. Okay. I'm gonna be the king of rock and roll someday. And this was the man that sold him the guitar, and he later wrote a letter to the store where it says, "My name is Forrest L. Bobo," and yes, that was his real name, last name Bobo, and I am 78 years old today, but I can well remember the afternoon when Elvis Presley and his mother came into the Tupelo Hardware, where I worked for 20 years. He wanted to buy a .22 caliber rifle, and his mother wanted him to get a guitar. I showed him the rifle first, and then I got the guitar for him to look at. I put a wood box behind the showcase and let him play with a guitar for some time. Then he said he did not have that money, which was only $7.75 plus a 2% sales tax. And the rest of the story is, in conclusion, I am to have a little part in Elvis's life. So, but it goes without saying, this is a popular spot for Elvis enthusiasts to go to. And as you can see, there's some pictures. I mean, that is a painting, of course. And if you want to learn more, buy some books. I'm definitely going to buy a couple souvenirs before I leave here. Now, this part of the store was not existent. This was not part of the store at the time when Elvis was here, but they expanded since then, and yes, they still sell guitars. In fact, the guy was telling me a group from the Netherlands was just here like an hour ago, and they literally just bought a guitar. I wonder how much shipping would cost, or carrying it on the plane back home. Oh well, the little questions in life. But yes, this is your typical mom and pop store. This ain't no Lowe's, this ain't no Home Depot or anything like that. It's like the good old days. And I wonder what's up in the balcony. I'm just curious, but I'm sure it had nothing to do with Elvis. Alright, so now I'm at the Tupelo Convention and Visitors Bureau. It's a tourist information center for anything. If you want to stop at any Elvis sites, or like Civil War sites or battlefields, or even the Natchez Trail, the information is here. If you want some good restaurants to eat at, there's also the Cadence Bank Arena, which is behind this building. But this was also the site of the Shakerag neighborhood that once stood here. It was a prominently African-American neighborhood, and it had a part of Elvis's life. All right, Shakerag community. From 1943 to 1947, Elvis's father, Vernon, worked for L.P. McCarty & Sons local wholesale grocery company, making deliveries to various parts of the city. Shakerag, a historically black community, was one of his delivery areas. It was here that Elvis was influenced by the sanctifying gospel and blues music he heard, which contributed greatly to the style he made famous. And there's another historical marker over there. Here's another guitar statue. Here's another from the Mississippi Blues Trail. Alright, Shakerag, located east of the old M&O, or later the GM&O railway tracks, and extending northward from Main Street, was one of several historical African-American communities in Tupelo. By the 1920s, blues and jazz flowed freely from performers at Shakerag restaurants, cafes, and house parties, and later from jukeboxes, while the sounds of gospel music filled the churches. The neighborhood was leveled and its residents relocated during an urban renewal project initiated in the late 1960s. And here's the back. There's a lot of details. Like, I did not know the Chambers brothers, which they had a hit during the 1960s, Time Has Come. I did not know they were originally from here. Wow. Willie Johnson and John Lee Hooker sang about Tupelo, as well as many others. Now we are in Lawhon School. I'm pretty sure the correct way to pronounce it is Lawhon or Lawhon, something like that. But it was an elementary school. It still is, because, yeah. And here is the sign, Happy Summer, Hound Dogs. I'm not even sure if that's their mascot, but I guess otherwise, why would they put it up there? But here's the marker that is placed right here. The sun is kind of in the way, but Elvis attended school here. In 1945, while in the 5th grade, one of his teachers, Mrs. J.C. Grimes, encouraged him to take part in the daily chapel services. Elvis would often sing Old Shep for the class. Oh, very interesting. So they had chapel services? I guess they still do, I don't know. A lot of schools don't, but school looks pretty decent for what it is, for how old it is. And let me see, get a look at this guitar over there, one of many that are around in Tupelo. Looks in great shape too. I'm sure a lot of kids and parents, as well as tourists like me, have had their photo taken with it. So it's been here since 2009, it says. Wow. Very nice. Alright, on to the next stop. Alright, going on to the next stop is the former site of the Assembly of God Church. Now, if you watch my other video about Elvis's birthplace museum complex, you would have seen the church. If you watched the whole video, that is. But it once stood here, but of course now it's the Victory Temple Church. But here's a marker that tells about the Assembly of God Church. In 1947, Elvis and his family attended church at this location, previously known as the Assembly of God. Reverend Frank Smith was the pastor of the church during this time, and he was very influential in Elvis's life. Not only did they become good friends, but Reverend Smith also helped young Elvis develop his guitar skills. Okay, and this was put up here in 2003. Now the church was literally moved to that complex in 2008. Alright, now we're going to grab some lunch just up that way at Johnny's Drive-In. Alright, come with me. So not too far from the Birthplace complex is Johnny's Drive-In Barbecue. And this is where Elvis ate many times. And I'm going to eat inside real quick, but I'm going to show you a little bit of the outside, including this guitar sculpture. You can also eat outside as well. But there's an Elvis booth I'm going to show you. And here's the marker, Johnny's Drive-In. While attending nearby Lawhon Elementary, Elvis often stopped here for one of his favorite meals, a cheeseburger and an RC Cola, or as Elvis called it, an ROC. One of Elvis's best friends was James Osborne, who often joined him here. Pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is take a look outside, then I'm going to come on in. Now it's also a car hop place, like people can bring stuff out to you, like what do you call it, car hops. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to eat inside, even though there's very limited seating. That is their menu, and prices are not shown. And it's also a drive-through, which is kind of weird, but Vietnam veteran. And yes, in order to get in, you got to go through the side door. I guess that's how Elvis did too. Alright, so this is Tupelo's oldest restaurant. Not quite sure how long it's been around, but yes, this was Elvis's favorite place to eat. He would eat a cheeseburger and an RC Cola. And of course it's crowded. I went during lunchtime. So I'm just going to sit here. Of course you got to sign the guest book. Here's their menu. They are famous for their dough burger, which I'm going to get, but I'm kind of breaking the rules. I thought I'd much rather eat like Elvis did, but I figured I might as well. I mean, because he got a cheeseburger and RC Cola. I am drinking an RC. RC is not really widely available these days, but on a cold, hot day, or I mean on a hot day, definitely RC Cola tastes really great. And by the way, this place only takes cash. No debit or credit cards, so bring plenty. Alright, this here is the dough burger. So I'm not really quite sure where it got its name, but I'm going to go ahead and eat up real quick. Mustard, pickle, and onion are on there. It kind of looks like a veggie burger if you ask me. Alright, I'm going to sit and chow down. Here we go. So about the burger, in case you're wondering, yeah, I can tell a little bit of the dough is in the burger. It kind of tastes, yeah, a little bit doughy. How's that? Alright. And this here is the Elvis booth. That's where Elvis sat. And that's what I'm going to do. See, there's even a picture that proves it. Very nice. This is where the king once sat. Some beer real quick.